AMD's brand new RX 9060 XT is here, and it has all the makings of the ultimate value 1440p GPU. But have AMD actually got it right? Or have they fallen over some of the same hurdles as NVIDIA with their competing 5060 and 5060 Ti products? Well, I've tested this card, know exactly how it performs, and I'll be talking you through it as I build an awesome 1440p gaming PC build for a little over $1,000. Let's do this. Let me start by addressing the 9060 XT and looking at the performance, prices, and specs. Now, AMD are launching two derivatives, a $299 8GB version and a $349 16GB variant. Sound familiar? Yes, it sounds all too familiar, doesn't it? Because that's exactly what NVIDIA did with their 5060 Ti. The big problem with this is that 8GB isn't enough, and for a lot of people, differentiating between which card is which is actually likely to be more of a challenge than you might think. Now, AMD have said to me, yes, James, but we have 8GB, 16GB in the name of the cards. The problem comes when you look at system integrators. How clearly is that going to be disclosed? Because let's face it, it makes an enormous difference. Now, AMD are even up to the same tricks as NVIDIA when it comes to sampling, because when I said to them, hi AMD, could I have the 8GB version too? They said, no, they haven't got any. AMD don't have any of their own GPU, which is good, isn't it? Now, I am going to speak to board partners and get an 8GB version, or just buy one if I have to, but it's certainly something you need to watch out for. If you're buying this GPU, you need the 16GB model. Now, the good news, hallelujah, there's some good news, is that the 16GB version is actually really quite good for the price. It's going to cost you $50 more than the RTX 5060 and provides more performance pretty much across the board. In fact, in many cases, it knocks on the door and trades blows with the 5060 Ti. The 16GB version of that card is around $439 at its manufacturer suggested retail price. Now, I will be jumping into the performance in literally a matter of seconds, but I should also point out before that this card isn't actually a manufacturer suggested retail price card. AMD sent me the wrong card, so this is going to be slightly more, but the performance should be broadly indicative of what you're going to expect. I'm going to talk about pricing. There's a rant incoming on that in a moment's time, but let's look at the benchmarks first, because let's face it, pricing doesn't matter if the card is, well, now, first up is Cyberpunk, starting at 1080p high rasterization. Now, the 9060 XT delivers in the region of 130 FPS. It actually delivered an identical frame rate to one decimal place as the 5060 Ti 16GB, which is more expensive, but crucially beat out the RTX 5060 by around about 11 frames per second. Move up to 1440p, which, let's face it, is where the 16GB model is really going to excel. And the 5060 Ti leads the charge with 90 frames a second, and the 9060 XT lags behind by just around 1.5 FPS on average. Thankfully, the 9060 XT provides a nice bump over the 5060, which sits down with 79 FPS, with around about a 9 FPS differential. At these frame rates, that's quite a chunky upside. It should be noted that turning on things like ray tracing has a really negative detrimental effect for AMD cards still pretty much across the board, so that's something to consider. Apex Legends, though, at 1080p high, sees the 9060 XT pretty much max out the graph, hitting that all-important 300 FPS cap, while moving through to 1440p places the 9060 XT just below the 7700 XT from last gen. AMD, I'd have really liked to have seen the new 9060 XT dethrone the 7700 XT, albeit that card is around $50 more for the 12 versus the 16GB variant. But it does beat out the RTX 5060 fairly comfortably, which is clearly where AMD are aiming this GPU. That's the other reason they sent me a press deck that literally was titled 9060 XT versus 5060. I think it's very clear where AMD are aiming this card. Hogwarts Legacy at 1080p also sees the 9060 XT beat out the RTX 5060. We're looking around about 30 FPS of upside, which is pretty substantial at 1080p, while moving up to 1440p retains a similar FPS upside of around 25 FPS. Alan Wake 2 sees a pretty significant upside at 1080p, but 1440p does actually even the field out, especially when turning on the respective upscaling technologies and ray tracing too. While Call of Duty's Black Ops 6 sees a characteristic lead for AMD across the board, with the 9060 XT benefiting from this, leaving, frankly, the 5060 and 5060 Ti well in the shadows. Marvel's rivals just flip the script somewhat though, leaning more towards NVIDIA. Again, there's a little bit of game-by-game bias involved here, but the 9060 XT still performs fairly well and delivers good frame rates that you aren't going to be particularly disappointed by. That then, on the face of it, makes the 9060 XT a pretty sensible buy, but the challenge that AMD have here is pricing. And this is where things get particularly complicated and a bit more region specific, so bear with me. NVIDIA are managing to sell 5060s, particularly here in the UK, for MSRP, and that's a similar case across Europe. Obviously in America right now, you guys have got a few things going on, which is probably having a bit of an impact, but I would expect NVIDIA to be hitting near enough MSRP, circa 10% in the US soon, on their cheaper cards, the 5060 and 5060 Ti. That means that in order for AMD's cards to actually be competitive, they're going to need to hit their SEP, which is just their term for MSRP, as well. And they're also going to need to do it at scale. Evidently, by the fact that they sent me the wrong model, that alone implies that there are plenty of cards available which are being sold for above MSRP. I have not really seen any evidence that AMD are actually hitting GPU MSRPs anywhere, and considering the amount of slack NVIDIA is currently getting, which for the record I think is justified in some areas and perhaps not in all, is a little surprising. I'd love to see AMD hit the key price points on this card, because as much as the performance is good and again provides really aggressive competition to NVIDIA, it only does so if you can actually buy one. Not only as far as stock is concerned, but at the price that AMD advertise. Otherwise, the whole thing's just bull, and I think we're all a bit fed up of it by now. So then, a good card if you can buy it at a good price, and if you can buy it at a good price, what should you pair it up with? Let's build a computer and let's talk about it. Now, CPU, there's only one choice, the AMD Ryzen 5 9600 non-X. Get rid of the X. Now, in truth, the X is also a good shout, especially if you're going to game more at 1080p, where you're more bound by a CPU bottleneck. But if you aren't, and you're looking at 1440p, then this is the better option, the 9600 non-X. That's going to save you some money, shift the bottleneck more towards the GPU, which we want, and just provide a slightly more balanced build overall. That's bit better. As far as RAM is concerned, I've gone for this lovely 6000 megahertz low latency kit from Corsair. This is their Vengeance RGB DDR5. It's very good, very reliable. We use it in a lot of the systems on Geeka PC. That's where we sell some of the builds on the channel pre-built for some of our UK viewers, so check it out if you like. And we do that for a reason. It's super reliable, super bulletproof, and just doesn't really present any problems. It's a similar rationale really with the SSD today. This is the Teamgroup MP44L. It's a fairly simple and basic 1TB drive, but as you'll see if you read our review of this on GeekaWhat.com, linked in the cards now, it punches above its weight and delivers better than advertised speeds in a lot of our testing. Maybe we got lucky with the one that we bought, but I can't complain. And really, you don't need the faster Gen 5 speeds, at least not in a build like this. We can save the money and allocate it into other components. Let's talk about the motherboard. Where's the motherboard gone? There it is, here's the motherboard. The B850 Eagle Wi-Fi 6E from Gigabyte. It's another component where I've made a bit of a tactical decision. It does only have Wi-Fi 6E, so if you really want Wi-Fi 7, go for a different board, either from Gigabyte or a different brand. But for most people, this is going to be more than fast enough, and I really quite like it. If I just open this up, you'll see what I mean when I say this is a really nice design at what is really a very good price point. Most importantly, you've got the two PCI Gen 5 slots. You've got the X16 GPU slot and the M.2 slot. Now, we won't need the M.2, but the PCI slot will be really beneficial, and that's the main thing really we're looking for. You also get a bit of CPU overclocking headroom. You can get the 9600 quite close to the 9600X stock speeds with some simple one-click overclocking, and the DDR5 support, as you'll find on all B850 boards, is obviously a good addition. AMD are just so far ahead of Intel right now in terms of platforms, it's actually kind of scary, and a board like this is a really superb choice. I'm going to come back and talk about the power supply and the case a little bit later, but the eagle-eyed amongst you may notice the CPU cooler is missing. Now, I could opt for the Wraith stock cooler that you actually get included with the non-X version of the 9600. That's this bad boy right here. It doesn't really save you that much money, and I just don't think it looks very good. Instead, I've actually been using some coolers from a new brand called upHere. I'll link them on Amazon down below. I've not been paid to say this. I bought the cooler, I liked it. I have the white one, the black one's coming tomorrow, so I'll add that in later in today's video. And hopefully you'll see what I mean when I say it's quite nice at what is again, a really reasonable price point. CPU installation is the next thing on the menu. If you've not done this before, it's very easy. Let me show you how. You just push the arm down, pull it up, loosen the socket, drop the chip into place. Not literally, don't actually drop it in and damage the pins. There we go. Now what you should be able to see on the overhead camera is the two little triangles, one on the socket, one on the CPU. That shows that we're all lined up. You can give it a gentle wiggle if you wish. It shouldn't move anywhere. Arm goes back down, socket cover comes off, everyone's happy. Let's do the RAM or memory next. I'd normally do the cooler, but I haven't got it yet. Now in this build, I'll be using the second and fourth DIMM slots. So that's the second one in and the one furthest from the CPU for our Corsair AMD DDR5 memory. Get it lined up, slide it into the slot. What you want to do, a bit of pressure on both sides, click it in, and just repeat this for as many RAM DIMMs as you've got. I've just got the 2. You might have more, you might have 4, and then you just do it for all 4 slots. SSD is going to be the final part at this stage, and what you may need to do for this, depending on how fancy your motherboard is swap out the standard Phillips head bit for a smaller one. I don't know if this is just like a micro Phillips or a mini Phillips. You may need a smaller screwdriver bit, you may not, depending on your motherboard. I think this board is one of the fancy ones, so you just pull back the tallest clip, then you grab your NVMe drive, you want to slide that in. Now you don't technically need to use the Gen 5 slot if it's not a Gen 5 SSD, but it's not going to hurt, is it? And then, you see the little peely? Pull it off. That's going to make sure that the thermal pad is going to bond nicely to the NVMe drive and help with heat dissipation through this top little heatsink, heat spreader, whatever you want to call it. Now, with that was very easy. Yeah, we're done, aren't we? We're all finished with the motherboard assembly, which means I can move this into the case. Now, this is a bit of a treat. This is the Montech King 65 Pro. And when I tell you that I just can't think of any case brand right now who is doing it like Montech, I really, really can't. Now, yes, Lee & Lee's amazing for some of the high-end stuff. Corsair are on a really good comeback at the moment. But on the value end of the spectrum, Montech are putting in some really good work. Now, this King 65 is a standard dual-chamber PC case. You get these two 140mm reverse blade intake fans, which are great. You get this nice little 120mm at the back, and they're all pre-wired up to an included fan and RGB hub, which makes life really easy. Now, because this is an ATX case, all of the standoffs, which are the little posts the motherboard screw into, should be in the correct locations, but it doesn't hurt to check. I can actually go as far to show you on my handy handheld camera which ones they are. You also get like a nice little behind the scenes. This is cool, right? With 3 standoffs here at the top, 3 along the middle, and a further 3 down the bottom. Make sure you don't miss the one in the far corner. And these should all line up with the 9 standoff holes that are circled on your screen now. So 3 at the top, 3 along the middle, and 3 down the bottom. Once you're confident everything's A-OK, you're going to slide the motherboard into place with the I/O just popping through the associated cutout. And then, there you go. Everyone always cuts out the misalignment. They make it look really easy. It is easy, but yeah, you have to align it and then get it all screwed in. As I say, 9 screws in total, and just make sure the board isn't bending. Make sure you're getting a nice firm fix into each of the standoffs. That's really, really important. I'm then going to crack on with the power supply, and if you watched a few of my videos before, you'll know I'm a big fan of this, the Corsair RM750e. James, it's a power supply, what do you want about? Now, the RME range from Corsair has for a long time been one of their good entry-level options, but they've actually really taken it up a notch with the new version, as you actually get these rather nice, they're not like fully braided, but they're like nylon individually sleeved, which looks really, really good. And I would say in a price-conscious build, means you don't really need to buy cable extensions in order for the cables to look good. Now, there's a few different cables I'll be using today. You're going to need one of these, which is the 24-pin motherboard power cable. You're also going to want one of these, which is a 4+4-pin CPU. You'll actually want 2 of them. So you can see this one is labeled as a second, and this actually splits into 2 blocks of 4, which is good because we only need a single extra block. You're also going to want to go ahead and pick up a GPU power connector. This card doesn't use PCI Gen 5, so you'll want the one that's Gen 5 on one side and the standard 6+2-pin EPS on the other. Some people might say, oh, they're pigtailed. They're not. They both come off the PCI Gen 5 individually, which is great. And you also need one of these, which is a SATA power harness. This is going to power up things like fan and RGB hubs. If you, of course, had a PCI Gen 5 graphics card, like a 5070, 5080, which has the new 12-volt 2x6 cable on both ends. As far as the power supply goes, it's a pretty standard, well, it's an RM750e, isn't it? It's not a great deal to say. You can see here we've got the 12-volt 2x6 for the GPU, your motherboard, SATA, and then any CPU or old school PCIs as well, for good measure. To go ahead and plug in all the cables to this, then I'm going to open up the door on the back of the case for easier cable management and screw the power supply into place. 4 screws on the rear to secure it down and will stop it from going anywhere. I'm then also going to go ahead and plug in all the power and front panel cables. The CPU one goes up to the top left. That's our 8 and our 4 pin. The motherboard is the biggest one that goes to the right hand side. It's 24 pins in total. Then I'm going to do the front panel cable, which goes to the bottom right corner and is in one handy block. It goes into the left hand side of this black outlined piece. HD audio for the headphone and mic jack goes to the bottom left. It only goes in one way round as it actually has a pin blocked out, followed by finally the USB 3, Type A and Type C. The Type A is notched, as is the Type C, so again they'll only fit one way round, so please don't force it. With that done, there's just 2 bits left to go. The graphics card, but first, I need to get my new CPU cooler and maybe an outfit change. I'm back! That either looked really good or really quite Anyway, the cooler has now arrived, which is good, and I have also changed my clothes. I'm a man of keeping promises, I think. I'm also losing my voice, which is good, isn't it? The cooler is here, so as you can see, that looks really rather nice. It's got a nice 120mm fan, it's got this little RGB section, it's black by colour, and even the heatsink is like kind of 3D, which is pretty cool. What I am going to do is lay the case down, I think flat, for the next stage of the build, as that should make things a little easier. What I need to do is just remove these plastic brackets, this one down the bottom here, this one up the top here, and replace these with the included bracketry that you get with this upHere CPU cooler. There's 2 little silver brackets that screw down through the same holes that this stock mounting hardware is secured to in the first place. A small dab of thermal paste onto the CPU, around about that kind of size is good for me. And then I'm going to fasten the cooler into place. With all that said and done, it's finally time for the GPU. Talked about this earlier, the 9060 XT. We've looked at detailed benchmarks already in today's video, but I will be looking at some performance numbers with this exact CPU and GPU combo shortly, just so you can see how when you take out that top-end CPU, the kind of effect that's going to have on gaming performance. The spoiler is that at 1440p, it doesn't make a huge amount of difference. Now, I've already removed the PCI lanes I need for this system, although it looks like I've got it wrong. Oh dear. What you should be able to see is that I've actually removed the second and third when I should have removed the first and the second. So silly me, I'm going to take out that very top slot, going to move it down to occupy slot number 3, and then making sure the PCI slot is pushed back, I'm going to go ahead, take the graphics card, remove the plastic protector, and slide it into place. Yeah, couple of screws to go on there, couple of power cables, and then it's time to see how good this system looks when it's all powered up. The build looks amazing. Really pleased with how this actually quite price competitive build has turned out. But what about performance? Well, we obviously looked at the 9060 XT earlier with the 9800X3D. That's so we can compare it to all the other cards in our stack. But what about with this exact CPU and GPU combo with the Ryzen 9600 Non-X? As you can see on your screen now with all the 1440p numbers, the build does well. The only game on here that's not at 1440 is Fortnite, which we run at 1080p competitive settings. Everything else is on high. A closer look at a couple of titles shows some good results. Cyberpunk 2077, which is typically strong for NVIDIA, does well with nearly 90 FPS at 1440p. Hogwarts Legacy sits just below 80 frames per second. It loves VRAM, so obviously the results you'd see here versus the 8GB variant would be very different. While Marvel's Rivals also gets close to that 90 FPS mark with an average of 87.1 FPS. The 9060 XT then, a bit of a mixed bag with respect to the 8GB variant, but if you can buy it for MSRP, the 16GB card looks like remarkably good value. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to get subscribed. Thanks for watching, and as always, we'll see you in the next one.